The cost of natural gas is a matter of critical concern for many Western New York consumers. The rate increases demanded by Southwestern gas suppliers this winter are beyond the control of the State Public Service Commission and the local gas companies. The increases are passed along to the consumer, and many of them are using less gas and paying more for it. Ironically, both the consumer and the gas industry are looking to Congress to solve the problem. Relief, if there's to be any, will have to come from Washington. State Senator Dale Volker of Depew is the chairman of the Senate Energy Committee. Volker will lead a delegation of state officials to Washington for a meeting with federal energy regulators, looking for action on the soaring prices.
There is right now a glut of natural gas. When you talk about the free market situation, that means that natural gas prices should fall. Instead, what's happening is that they are rising at a very dramatic rate, and they are directly rising because of the fact that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is allowing some things to continue that is allowing the southwestern gas companies to jack prices up here, and that can't continue. Because there are only a certain number of pipelines up to this part of the country, to the Midwest and to the East. In fact, basically two. And therefore, they can control the supply and the cost, or the price, if they're allowed to do it. And in effect, what's been happening is that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has been virtually rubber stamping every request for increases in natural gas during the last several years, and that's got to stop.
The difficult winter of 1977, which caused gas shortages and temporary closings of industries and schools, led to the Natural Gas Policy Act of 1978. It decontrolled 2 out of 30 classifications of gas, the most difficult to find and drill for, and as it turns out, the most expensive for consumers. But industry officials say only total decontrol of natural gas will stabilize prices at a level everyone can live with. Jerry Miller, Vice President of National Fuel Gas.
We all anticipated what we call a big spike in gas prices when deregulation would have occurred in 1985. It is our feeling now that the spike has already occurred. In other words, we're looking now for a leveling off to occur. And the answer is still the same as it was in 1978. If we're going to supply the consumers of our country in the Western New York with the best gas supply and with the lowest price, we've got to have total decontrol of new gas. Because then you put the marketplace into it. Right now, you see, as long as there's government controls, you do not have a free market. And this is what I think people get a little confused on. They say, well, if you have a surplus, why doesn't it drive the price down? It does not drive the price down because it's under government control. And if you want to drive the price down, then you've got to get the consumer back into the marketplace.
Now, decontrol is a word that absolutely frightens consumers, especially as they look at what has happened to their bills in the past few years.
See, the problem is we haven't had decontrol. We've had this, what they call phased-in decontrol, which meant that in 1985 we were going to get decontrol. And with the government, as long as the government has his hands on it, they're the marketplace. They determine the price, and that's been the problem. You can't have a commission or a group of people sitting in Washington, D.C. and say this is going to be the price of natural gas. You and I, as consumers, are the ones that should determine the price.
But in the long run, over the next few years, I don't see any alternative but the fact that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is in control, or Congress, if they don't act, is going to have to say, look, we are going to have to oversee what's happening between the Southwest and the Northeast and the Midwest and control those prices. Otherwise, people won't be able to heat their homes, business will be driven out even more, inflation will be worse, and economies will be worse.
This law of supply and demand will work. If there's an excess of gas and nobody will buy it, the price will come down. Now, I want to qualify. As in terms of whether it will drive the price down where it was before, we don't know that, because energy today is on a world basis. In other words, we're in competition with every country in the world for energy. But certainly we know there'd be a stabilization of prices. That much we're sure of. Congress has got to take hold of this because they're the ones that caused it in the first place. In other words, they passed the Natural Gas Policy Act, and there's got to be changes to the Natural Gas Policy Act. I like to use a term very simply. Government caused this, and only government can solve it.
On January 3rd, Buffalo Congressman Henry Nowak introduced a bill that would freeze natural gas prices for 6 months to give Congress time to study the entire issue. Consumers' needs, an adequate supply of gas, and deregulation and a free market will be key elements in the congressional battle over the gas issue.